Okay, friends. I've had this stupid thing ready. Not stupid. I've had this thing like ready. Oh boy, this was bad. Sorry. That was dumb. I didn't realize there was a stop sign right there. It was like the worst stop sign. So I've had this live stream up for a minute. Some of you maybe have come and gone. This will likely be something that people just kind of look at later. Because I plan on doing probably more of a deeper talk, not just on a Carversation, but I was driving and I started listening to Chris Williamson and Eric Weinstein talk about some stuff today, and like I got 5 minutes into their conversation, and they talk about this very thing, or they start to talk about it. And before I heard everything he said, I wanted to just sort of say my piece on it, because I have talked about this in the past a little bit. I kind of wish I had saved it, but I had the same thought essentially, and I derived the title of this from what Eric Weinstein said, in that like will Trump be allowed to be elected? And this was something that I kept sort of asking myself in my head, and even like to some extent I think I asked some people maybe on live streams who were Trump supporters, or it was just something I postulated to them to ask, like what do you think is really going to happen in this election? Do you think it's going to go, like, even if Trump is the popular vote, like, will the Electoral College allow him to be elected? Like, because initially, what I thought of was, 2016, Hillary was basically a shoo-in for this, right? She was a shoo-in for the Democratic Party. Like, everyone thought, oh, she's going to run with this. There's no way that Trump's going to win. So, but as we all know, history told a different story. As a huge underdog, supposedly, Trump won that election. So, and from what we're told, Hillary won the popular vote and lost the Electoral College. So, not alone, I think, is Trump doomed in the same way. It has the media run their own smear campaigns enough to where they've done their damage in making him look, as bad as possible. Is that where we're at, essentially? So I don't know. I think it's a big issue that we have to sort of come to terms with as we get closer and closer to the election. We got a debate next week, and I don't even know if it matters all that much at this point what happens. If Trump does well, if he presents well in interviews, if he polls well. I mean, I think we see poll numbers that are just all over the place. There's some that put Harris way ahead. There's some that put Trump way ahead, and there's some that are putting them neck and neck. Even how Kamala gets her nomination, and is installed as that Democratic what's it called, nominee. I just don't know. I don't know if the powers that be allow Trump to be elected. And I think that's the scary part. And I don't think you'll ever know if that was the case anyway. Like, would you know? Like, no one's gonna say like, oh, we aren't gonna allow him to get voted in, right? That's just obviously not gonna happen. But as I see it, I'm not convinced we're going to see a legit election. I feel like something's been amiss for several years. Even to play devil's advocate and look back at Hillary's run and her eventual loss, like that to me was enough. It seemed like she was the popular candidate, but yet the electoral college did not, sway in that favor, and a lot of people were upset about that. And again, are these polling numbers real? We keep seeing, liberal outlets posting that, Kamala is so far ahead of Trump, and she's pulling 5 or 6 points over Trump right now, and there's no way he can recover, and Trump's running scared, and to be quite honest, like, even as someone who's not like a huge fan of the guy anyway, like, he doesn't seem like someone who really runs from a fight in this way. Like, he seems to put up a fight quite a bit, be it legally or, again, when it comes to debates, like, he just kind of does it. I think that I don't know. I'm worried. I think this election is going to be a very mask-off event for our election system. I don't think it doesn't matter who is elected. There's going to be massive issues with people are going to take massive issue with how the results pan out. There's no two ways about it. People are going to be mad that their candidate was not picked, didn't win. I think either way, you're going to see different versions of the same actions. I don't know how much, I think Trump's elected. I think you're going to see very much like what you saw in 2016. I think you're going to see a lot of groups, get very, very angry, and they're going to do what they do in their cities. I think if Trump's elected, I think you're going to see a lot of, voter fraud, videos, talking points, all that stuff. And I don't, I'll tell you, the one thing that really gets me, that really annoys the shit out of me, is the fact that we know that there's issues with our election system, and nobody's really done anything about it in the time that we've had. No one really did anything while Trump was in office, which is even worse. If you know that there's issues with your system, there's be it security breaches, maybe there's logistical things happening that are causing problems. Like, you got to find ways to fix it. Because when it comes to the election, and then you start raising hell about it, there's no, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. Your time is up. And the Supreme Court, I believe back in 2020, 2021, when he had lost the election, they basically said, you knew about this, you guys all knew about this before. The Supreme Court said, you all knew about this before, and you did nothing. So no, you can't bring it to our attention now and kick and scream, which again, checks and balances in our government. So it was the right call by our Supreme Court. The inaction of Congress, be it from Republicans or Democrats, causes issues downstream that, essentially they are the cause of. They do not take action when they're supposed to, and I don't really feel bad for them. But the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, have been attempting, at least in my opinion, to interfere in their own way for the past couple of years as it pertains to Trump. Anyway, what, be it all these like legal troubles, gag orders, all that stuff has kept him either off the campaign trail, distracted, other people distracted, right? Like even, again, all that's happened with him, it keeps people like, oh, see, now he's a felon and he did this and and I'll be the first to admit, I haven't looked deep into what Trump was accused of, what he was convicted of, and the circumstances surrounding them. And what's funny is that I do see a lot of people online who seem to be, they're very well versed in what he did and what he was convicted of. A lot of the liberal commentators are, claim to have a very good grasp on Trump and who he is and what he's done and why he should be completely ineligible. Again, it even kind of goes farther back. The claim that he incited an insurrection is enough to have him removed as a candidate. Is that something that we will see? Are they really going to invoke that? Now he wasn't convicted of that, but at what point does someone step in and say you're actually eligible to run for the office of the President of the United States because of X, Y, and Z? If there's not a legal precedent, but it's in our Constitution, how is that applied and who applies that? Would that be Congress bringing that up, and then it moves to the Supreme Court after that? That seems to be me where it would, they would be the sort of tiebreaker in that. Again, I don't believe. Oh shit! I don't believe what he did was inciting an insurrection. I think he spoke in a similar fashion that others have spoken in the past about their lack of faith in election results, and even how other political figures have asked their constituents and the public to walk to their political building of choice to protest, right? And I think that January 6th is always a unique thing because there were certainly bad actors in that, but a lot of what happened was not like a lot of people were not engaging in extreme like vandalism, or anything like that. And besides that singular instance of Ashley Babbitt getting killed, you didn't really see a whole lot of like violence there, and that, I don't know. If people have the right to stand up and protest, right? We've seen several protests. We've seen people on the opposite political party take over entire areas of cities and rename it. I don't think that we're going to see. I think unfortunately we've come to a place that Trump will not be allowed by, again, the establishment, the powers that be, whoever you want to name them. They're not going to allow him to take office again. They don't know what to do with him. Trump is a unknown quantity. They don't know what to do with someone who is as I'm trying to search for the right word. like the labels don't stick properly, like people say, oh, he's a fascist, but they don't understand what fascists actually do, and then they try and attribute things that he says as like oh, well, this could be the beginning of a fascist state. Like, well, yeah, but fascism has always been carried out with basically utilizing the military to curb or to go around any sort of rule of law. They don't care for law. They use the military at their disposal to affect their political opponents, to silence them, to prop themselves up, and to impose their own will upon their people and other governing bodies. And Trump never did that. In the 4 years he was president, he never did that. And people come to the other argument that, oh, well, he sent the National Guard places. Yeah, well, as commander-in-chief, if the states ask for assistance on things, he will send in the National Guard. They will send the National Guard to protect, their property, the other, people there. Things get out of hand. This is not something new. But people's cavalier labeling of him as this great or this malignant dictator that needs to be cut out of American politics is just kind of crazy at this point. There's nothing really to back up him being that. You could maybe argue he's a nationalist, or certainly a populist, but he's for sure, Trump has been a anti-interventionist candidate. He doesn't want to be involved overseas. He doesn't, to the point where he's disengaging from these big treaties that we're involved with, right? Like Paris Accord and all that stuff that we're footing the bill for. And people don't like that. Oh, we should be worried. Yeah, well, a lot of it is in the name of protecting America's interest, lowering the corporate tax rate to keep companies in America not leaving, not investing. He doesn't want companies to go overseas and invest in, in build companies in China and India where regulations are non-existent, where slavery is abundant. Make it cost effective for people to operate here in the United States. And the thing too is the guy is not perfect. The guy is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think anyone who's his supporter would say as much. I don't think he's a godly man. I think he does what he needs to do in order to appeal to the people, the necessary people to vote for him. Like every politician does. Every politician does this. Yeah, I don't know. Excuse me. My plan is to discuss this at more at length at a later date too, and kind of give a part two, because this is, again, I started listening to the Chris Williamson podcast, Modern Wisdom with Eric Weinstein, and they basically brought this up right out of the gate, and I was like, oh my god, I want to have a say. I want to chat about this too. And I haven't really listened to anything except for the opening 5 minutes. But I do think it's something that people overall are not really allowed to talk about, because it makes people think like you're strapping that tinfoil hat on, right? Like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Now you think that there's some shadow government keeping Trump from voting, like when he just needs to get out of his own way. And it's like, no, I don't. I mean, I think he needs to get out of his own way, but I do think that there is a serious campaign against him, way more than just like some ads online or ads on TV that are, you know, trying to paint him in a bad light. Like we're seeing a much different smear campaign with Trump, but it under the guise of, oh well, this is legal action that we're taking against him because of things that he did. But it all comes at in a very convenient time. You know, it comes at a time where they need him to be either ineligible or unable to, you know, to take stage because he's tied up in some legal battle, or to make him out to be this villain for people to really hate. Oh, he's a sexual predator. Oh my God, he said, did you know that Trump said this about top tier whatever? You know, I'm like, who cares, dude? Like literally manufacturing stories. And then you have people online who are like, can you believe Trump in his locker room talk? Like men saying, like, can you believe Trump in his locker room talk? Like, dude, every single guy out there has engaged in this. Every single one who has an active like sex life. And even if you don't, you've made up a story about how you did this and that to her. Not because you wanted to disrespect women, but because you wanted to fit in with your group. But instead, they make it national news that Trump said this one time. Like, I don't care. I don't care. This is what happens. And you're absolutely lying to yourself if you think that you are, you know, if you're gonna set that purity test, like, well, I'm sorry, but you already failed. Well, I'm not running for office. Doesn't matter. You're despicable. You talk down to women. You don't deserve a voice because you're part of the problem. There's a lot of bullshit happening in the world that does need to be called out. But there's a time and place for it. And there's a reality that we need to engage with as well. Is that purity testing people is not a good idea. Most, if not all of us, will fail those purity tests, and that's okay. We're human. We're not perfect beings. Trump is certainly not a perfect being. No politician is a perfect being. They all have skeletons in their closet, most of which they don't want pulled out. But this campaign that we're seeing right now against Trump, it seems unique in that it is being done on a scale unlike anything that we've seen before. And a lot of it has to do with the time that we live in. You know, we have evolving news coverage. It's not just about 24-hour news. I mean, it is, but you know, we live in clip culture. We live in a time that is we see the same clips over and over again, sometimes from different angles, and it makes us think that this is reality. It's really hard to watch, honestly. It's really hard to watch. I am trying to find where are they? Do not want that later. Okay. Yeah. Is he allowed to be elected? I would be very interested in knowing what people think about that. I would like to know what their thoughts are. I don't know if he ultimately gets. I think it'll take a miracle to get Trump elected again. And people say like, oh, if he's not elected this time, he's definitely going to rerun, in 2028. I don't see that happening. I think Trump, if he doesn't win this time, he's done. He'll be too old. He'll be 82 or something like that. I think he's done. But it makes me think that we will see, it'll be a giant flaw that we see in our system, and I think it will cause a big shift. I at least hope it'll cause a big shift in our election process. We need better safeguards in our election. We need better security. We need to think about, proper voter identification. I think that's totally acceptable. I think it's totally acceptable and reasonable. And I think it's maybe something that just gets sent in the mail when you sign up, when you register to vote and sign up for the selective service, the card comes in the mail. And for those who, obviously now, like, you just go to the DMV and you fill out like maybe a special form, and I don't know, maybe you get a special card, and then maybe driver's licenses moving forward get, maybe a special QR code or something on it. I don't know what the real answer is, but I do think that something needs to change in order to verify identity when it comes to voting. Especially, and the mail-in ballots just seems like a bad idea. Ballot harvesting seems like something that needs to stop as well. Oh shit. I don't know. I'm interested in what people think about this, because I don't know if the question's ever been posed in this way. I'm sure it has, but I've never really posed it to people as like, do you think that Trump is allowed to be elected? And that, because the problem is it takes some digging, like psychologically, it takes some digging, even like is this something that we can really talk about out loud? People say, oh, of course he's allowed to be elected. It's like, well, like, let's really think about this. The guy's it's been an uphill battle for the last 4 years. And people will make the argument, well, it's warranted because he did this to himself. He engaged in, an insurrection. He, attempted to incite an insurrection. I don't know. I think it's an interesting question to ask oneself at the end of the day. I'm honestly surprised there wasn't more people around to chat with. But that's all right. I'm definitely interested. If you're watching this after, I'll keep this one short, so you guys can answer the question. Maybe let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think Trump will allowed to be elected in 2024? Let me know why you think he will or will not be allowed. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching the video, and that's it for this conversation. Take it easy.